Welcome to the Level Up Business Podcast. I'm J.R. Lay, and joining me for today's conversation is my friend Lance Cox, who is an entrepreneur. He's a developer, and he's an innovator operating at the intersection of real estate, advanced materials, and scalable business systems. Welcome to the show, Lance.
Thank you.
Before we get into our conversation about something that you and I have both been learning about, thinking about, hearing about in our time in Elevated, identity. I want to roll back. What is good in your world right now, personally and or professionally? It is your pick to get started.
Oh, gosh. Well, one of my biggest goals has been to spend more time with the kids and less time at work, because I was definitely had those backwards for a long time. And so what's been good is some new hires on my work front that are taking on responsibilities that are allowing me to go explore new opportunities, but also spend more time with the family, which was the goal in the first place. So that's pretty exciting.
Well, I've been there. I know what that's like. And I think it was the day I came home and my number 3 said, "Dad, why do you always come home with a dark cloud over your head?" So not only was I not really fully present, I wasn't even in the right line of work, if you will, as an entrepreneur, because I wasn't aligned. And that really stung when he shared that with me. So I know you're not alone. I'm not alone. As entrepreneurs, we probably have dealt with this in some part of our journey. But I guess the question becomes then is what shifted for you to want to make that change to begin with in the first place, to start winning at home like you were winning at the office?
Yeah. Well, like you, kids are a great filter, right? I definitely had times where I'd come home and my kid would say something like, "Oh, how come you're never here for this?" Or "How come you never go on this trip?" And I'm like, "Well, I got to work, buddy," and obviously, when he's 5, 6, 7, doesn't understand, the reality of that. You got to go put food on the table, and how expensive things cost. But, enough of those, and you're like, okay, I do want to be more present. And so you just start thinking about, well, how do I do it? Right. And I struggled for a while to find people, partly just a lack of people or whatever the case was. I didn't want to make excuses, but it was hard, went through different people. But regardless, landed where I am today. I just had a meeting with one of my newest hires yesterday, going through projects. He's got everything going right. He knows what's going on. He's handling everything and putting things back where they should be. And it's great because, there are times where I'm doing something that, while I might be good at doing it, I shouldn't be doing it. And so it's been good to step back into roles that I should be more attentive to and actually be every day.
I think that's the key point. It's to be instead of do. And one of my tools that I use to teach other entrepreneurs, it's the 90-day growth method. And it's like every 90 days, we go through a cycle of review what we did, learn, think, so that we can do even better. But as I'm looking to update that, I'm actually really considering switching the do to be, because that comes to the heart of our conversation, which is identity. Even to the point of when we're talking about what's going on at work, what's going on at home. I saw someone post this on LinkedIn, and I'm not going to mention their name. I just want to read an excerpt because I pulled this up as you were talking. He travels a lot, and he wrote a letter, and he made it public that he wrote to his kids. And he said, "I love my work. It's been foundational to my identity for a long, long time, and I'm good at it." You even mentioned the things that you're good at.
Sure.
I pride myself on how hard I work and the success I've had, but it pales into comparison about how happy I am to have you both as sons. And then he kind of gets back to the point of identity a little bit later in his letter, which really it resonated with me, because it's like something that, as I mentioned before, what we've been learning, talking, thinking about in Elevated, it is our identity. And so for me, I've been really considering it's not who I've been, it's not who I am, it's not who I'm becoming. It's an even, I would say, kind of a deeper or an elevated perspective. It's who I'm being called to become. And perhaps kids are a great barometer to that. What's your take on that?
Well, I think they are. I think it's a great one, right? No filter. It's so basic. It made me at times stop and think, okay, what do I want to be known for? Like, do I want to be known as one of those dads that's never around and he's good at business, or do I want to be known as like, hey, this guy is he's a great dad. Like which one's gonna be first, right? Like I would much rather my kid look back and be like, man, I remember we played football and my kid, all he wants to do is play football. He wants to eat, sleep, drink football. We throw the football every night. He wants to watch the highlights. He wakes up in the morning, who won the game. And I'm like, I didn't even realize there was a game. And he's 7. And so I want him to look back and be like, man, I played football with dad every day, right? Like this is what I had to and so it is those days where he'll be like, Dad, why weren't you on this trip? Where were you? Or we'll look at pictures and he's like, oh yeah, you weren't there for this, but this is what we did. And I'm like, gosh, I do want to be there more. And so I think kids are a great part of that, right? Because there's like obviously I want my clients in any business to be happy with the services that I provide and what we do. But at the end of the day, like they care so much and then they're out of your life, but your kids are there with you forever. And I mean, not that, like a good client. I mean, I've had clients that have become some of my best friends and they are there for life, but it's still not the same as your kid, you know?
No, and that's where, like, in 2012, I had that kind of experience, and one of my advisors back then said, "Listen, all transformation," because it's like at the time, I was a 28, 29, well, there at that point, 30-year-old entrepreneur. So it's like I was wanting to quote unquote change the world.
Sure.
And he said, no. He said that starts first with yourself, then with your wife, and then your kids. Everything else kind of comes after
Well,
that.
I think one of the things that was hard for me is I really enjoy what I do.
As
And
yeah, I get it.
it,
I get
like,
it.
like, like I jokingly tell people, like, I feel like my day is over in like 17 minutes. Like I fully enjoyed it. And I'm like, gosh, where'd it go?
Mhm.
It's like going to a theme park and you're like, there's highs and lows, but it's fun and it's thrilling. And then it's over and it's like, well, it's 5:30. All right. Well, I already worked too late. I'm home late, whatever the case is. And so I think if I was in a profession that I didn't like as much, it'd be way easier to have prioritized like, oh, I'm never working late. But, I don't even try to. I'm so focused on it and I'm having fun. And the next thing I know, I'm like, oh geez. And so I think when you step back, you're like, well, if your kids are as and I don't remember if it was you or somebody else that asked me, like, well, if your kid or that family life is that important to you, then it's gonna supersede that work joy and the work overwork and all those things. And I think that's really what just eventually got to me was kept hearing that, in my head. And it was like, yeah, like I got these backwards.
For me, I would say work became like I love what I did, and I still love what I do, but it became an addiction.
Yeah.
And it was a form of wasn't necessarily with the kids, but it was a form of not dealing with the deeper things that I had to deal with in myself. Because it's like I could just keep myself busy. It's like and then it's like I started compromising. Like I'd be there for the kids stuff, but then I'd come home and you know do the night routine, dinner, bath, bed. And then it was like, oh my gosh, I got to get back to work. And so, then I'd work, start working again like at 9 and go till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning and wake
Yeah.
up at 6 or 7, be there for the kids. And then it was just this like unhealthy cycle of, and this is where identity was like, I believed that that's what I had to do to be successful. Like I had to suffer to succeed was what my belief was. And then probably even my identity. How has your identity shifted and changed over the years? And maybe you're in the midst, and it would be actually interesting to watch this, 12 months from now, 24 months from now, because
Yeah.
you might be in the midst of an identity shift right now as we're talking.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I definitely drank the Kool-Aid years ago, like work, right? Like that's my thing. There's times in my life where I didn't enjoy it, but I was like, this is what I'm doing. But then I got to the point where I did enjoy it and I was like, this is fun. Like I get the dopamine hits every time I did something. I think, kind of going back what you're talking about, like working those late nights, like I knock something out, I feel good, right? I knock something else out and I keep doing that. Well, when it was just me doing something, I could control the whole process. It went smooth. It ended up good. It was great, right? You go. you go home and your kids have had a long day. They're overly tired and they're overly hungry, and you don't get to control that. And then they have a meltdown, and you can't control that meltdown, you know. And it's like, well, man, work is not more enjoyable, but at least you can control the outcome, you know? The kid's like, "Nope," you know? And I think there was when I was first trying to make that transition, I think that was a hard thing for me because I hadn't been around it. I was the youngest kid. I wasn't around little kids. I wasn't around things like that. And so I'm like, not that I control everything in my life, but like the things that I really can't control at all, um, that was tough, you know? And I'd be like, man, I'd rather be working right now in that role than dealing with this meltdown, you know? And it's like, and I'm really good at that. Let somebody else deal with the meltdown, you know? But
I
it's not
get
practical, you know, like that's what I need to do, you know?
No, you're bringing me back. I mean, by the time that, my youngest was born, and as you know, Delia and I, we have 4, we had 5 kids or 4 kids, 5 and under. And so those were some pretty rough years, and, uh, I'll say, yeah, my identity has shifted over that time period, and even just recently, within the last 12 months, I've had a massive identity shift, and perhaps maybe not even a shift is the right word, it's an identity upgrade. I mean, I was so ingrained with who I was that I failed to do what I needed to do to launch Level Up Business because it's like, I had a couple of best-selling books. I had one of the top 3% podcasts with the other business. Unfortunately, the a question changed the trajectory of my journey, which was how does what feels like became my burden become the blessing for someone else? And question was almost 12 months ago as of recording.
Yeah.
And as a result, the answer was found. But where do you see over the years your identity shifting and maybe even because I think you're onto something. It's like control, and now you're starting to see that show up as you're elevating activities to others within your companies. Maybe that experience early on with kids was helping you set you up for where you're at today.
Well, okay, that's definitely true. I mean, you think about, right? Like when you start as a solo entrepreneur, you control every bit of the process, the outcome, and you're like, okay, I've got this, right? And once you bring other people in, you're giving up that control. It's not done the same that you would do it, or it's not done as well as you would do it. And there's all those different things like that was a hard thing for me to do. So when you go back to that identity question, right? So okay, I'm definitely in an identity shift. I was late to being a dad in the first place, so my whole identity was just working, right? So then all of a sudden it's like, hey, late in life, now you get to throw dad in the mix where like you're in like the prime of your professional career and you're doing those things. Well, now you throw the dad, and it's like, well, so now you have a completely new identity. And it's weird because I remember working with people where I'm like, oh, yeah, they got to leave early or they got to do this or they got to go drop their kid off. And to me, I'm like, geez, come on, guys. Like, you can make it here. You can be here on time. What do you got to leave early for? And now as a dad, I'm like, oh gosh, okay. Like, how am I going to go do this and still be able to come back and do my job, you know? And it definitely in that transitional identity period, I learned way more empathy than I ever had in life, which is maybe sad to say, but I just didn't have that experience, right? And
I think it's a matter of perspective, and obviously experience is a part of that because it's like I remember, when we started having kids and I was traveling a lot. And it's like I'd speak at an event, but I might roll in like a day early or stay a day late and just hang out and socialize. And it put so much additional stress on my wife because she's at home running solo with 4 kids, and it's like now it's like I fly in, I fly out, I try to be as efficient as I can with my time, but to a degree, I felt that not only was there some pain for her, but there was some pain for me because I had to die some identity deaths. I mean, that's the whole point of like my life's motto is memento mori. It's like we got to die to the person we were the day before to become the person that we're being called to become the next day, and that we're not going to be there. It's just one day, one step at a time. But as you're going through your identity shift, maybe the better question then becomes, who are you becoming, or who are you being called to become on your journey, not just as an entrepreneur, but as an entrepreneur, as a father, you've got all these other dimensions to you now.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you from an identity standpoint?
Well, I think, for me, it's changed a lot over last year because where I thought I was going, my path has already been moved in different directions, right? And so, and you could break that into so many different like wheels and avenues, of personal and business and this and that. Um, but one of the biggest learnings that I had this year, and I think I mentioned it at Elevated or perhaps to you directly, was one of my hardest experiences this year was giving myself the right word would be, I don't know what the right word would be, but basically giving myself the okay to change that identity and to let something go, right? Like I decided partway through the year, like, well, if I can't find the right operator for this business, I'll close it, I'll let it go, which is completely opposite of my identity. Like that's not something I would ever do. It's like, nope, nope, I'm going to stay and I'm going to do whatever I got to do. Well, unfortunately, my identity is no longer, I will hop in and do whatever I got to do to make something happen because I have a limited time. Like I have to have dad time. I have to have work time, and I can't commit to 48 hours in a day when there's only 24. So it's like, what am I going to do? I have to give things up. Permission. That's what I was trying to think of. The biggest thing this year has been giving myself the permission to let one of my identities die. And that was really hard to do. I mean, I definitely mulled over some identities for probably 9 to 12 months before I finally like the light bulb clicked and I'm like, you know what? It's okay to let this die. But it took a long time just to make that shift and be able to give myself that permission.
Why why is this conversation on identity, why could it be important for someone else who is watching or listening to this? Why has it been important for you to let some of your past identity, let that die to create room for new identity to take root?
Well, so I think a couple of things. I mean, one, I think some people are living below their best identity, which I've done just because they're putting themselves through too many things, right? One of the speakers that I really enjoyed from our one of our events this year was Jill Sholin, right? Who spoke on, oh, I was doing good things, but I was keeping those good things from letting me do great things. And I was sitting there going like, man, that is me to the T this whole fiscal year. I have done things that I'm good at, things that maybe I'm exceptional at it, but I shouldn't be doing, or I'm doing things that are just keeping me from doing something bigger, better, greater. And so I think I would venture to guess that most of us are doing something, whether it's in business, whether it's in our personal life, but I'm willing to bet we're all doing something. We're allowing some old identity to exist too much in our life that's keeping us from really being where we should be, right? And I definitely got trapped in like, well, I'm really good at this and I'm going to do it even though I don't enjoy it. And then I got burned out on some things because I'm like, I didn't enjoy it in the first place. I had to do it. I didn't have anyone else. And it's like, well, gosh, I should have solved that problem a long time ago. Should have found somebody else, put somebody else out in there. Right. And so I think any person that's listening, whether they're work for themselves or not, there's definitely something in your personal or business identity or other parts of your life that's if you really stop to think about who that person is that you not only want to be, but that person that you, like you said, you're being called to be, right? Your greatest self. Because you're not being called to just be mediocre. You're not being called like here's where you are. Are you living below that level? And if you are, which we all do somewhere, it's time to like have a identity check-in and a lot of times, right, like we can't see it because we're staring at it all day, every day, So I think you've got to have other people, I mean, I've appreciated your opinion. I've appreciated views from other people in our group and other friends outside of our group that have given me feedback that I'm like, yeah, like how I didn't see that, I don't know. But I needed that, you know? And because I don't know, for me, it's always been really easy for me to look at anybody's situation and be like, gosh, it's so clear. You should go do this. Like, I,
But here's the reason it is this way. It's because we are so trapped in our own little jar. We're trapped in our own little bottle, and we cannot read our own label. It's
yeah,
so easy to read the label on everyone else's bottles or jars. It's like, oh, that's a Coke, that's a Pepsi, that's Dr. Pepper.
yeah,
But then it's like, well, what the heck am I? Like, I can't even see my label. But
yeah,
when we start listening with an open heart to what others are saying, particularly when they are speaking with love
mhm,
because they care,
yeah,
that's where the real transformation begins to happen. Because when we start hearing that, I think one of the very first things for me, and Julia Waller brought this up, and I think that'd be a great complimentary conversation to for those watching and listening to go listen to the one with Julia Waller, because we are talking about unique ability and
mm,
how quickly we are to dismiss our own unique abilities, our gifts, because they come so natural to us. And it's like, oh, it's easy.
yeah,
Well, yeah, it's easy for me, but it's not easy for you. And what's easy for you is not easy for me. And so therefore, I mean, that's the whole basis of business is we share our gifts with each other. But how many of us are walking around with gifts that we don't even realize are gifts we get with in the first place? So therefore, we can't even gift our gift to other people. But
yeah.
and I think that's where, telling the truth, that truth teller, we need to have truth tellers in our life. Who's the truth teller in your life?
In mine, well, I think my kids are great ones, which sounds funny because they're so young, right? But it's just they tell you right how it is. You know, I've got a couple of friends that have been like, uh, they've been like the best devil advocate from a business standpoint of all time. I could throw an idea out there on the board, and immediately, it's not that they're picking apart, but they'd see the good, they'd see the bad. But it's like, and I'm just like, gosh, why didn't I see that? Right. But at the same time, I've done that for other people many times, you know, where it's like, oh, I don't know how I didn't see that, but here you go. You know, I feel like that's one of my unique abilities is just seeing what other people don't see, you know. But I've got a few for sure, some good mentors. And I think through my life, I've always had a few like that. I've always had a few people that could just tell me how it is. But you gotta develop that relationship, you know. But I love when that happens, you know, and I love when someone's just like, when they see you and they're like, okay, you're out of alignment. And they're just going to tell you like, dude, what's going on? You know, when I read The Gap in the Gain, that book, right? At the end of the book, he's like, okay, you have to go and you have to find another person and you have to tell them what the gap is, what the gain is, so that when you're having that conversation, they can just straight and tell you, like, hey man, are you in the gap or are you in the gain? And then you're like, oh
Common
yeah,
language.
you're right. I'm in the gap. How do I move over to the gain? You know? And I think you kind of need the same thing from an identity standpoint. You know, you need people that know you and probably better than that, know who you should be, right? Who you should become. I know for a lot of people, like that's their parents or whatever. You know, my mom passed as a young kid. My mom's birthday was yesterday. And I actually thought to myself yesterday, I was like, I wonder what my mom would say to me right now, you know, but because she would be speaking to some identity that I don't even see, you know. But it would be really interesting to see what that would be because that'd be coming from my mother perspective that I just don't have in my life, you know, never have. I mean, she passed when I was 2, so I don't know what that's like. But it'd be something.
As we wrap up, and thank you for sharing that because it really just it pulled another perspective. It's like when it comes to identity, I guess a question for those watching and listening: have you forgotten? Have we forgotten? Are we the authors of our own life? Have we outsourced our authorship, and as a result, we've outsourced some of our identity? And the minute that you remember that you're the author of your own life, you can rewrite the script, the story, not even a new chapter, a whole new book, whole new identity. And as Lance and I have been talking about today, we're both in that process. I've done it twice as an entrepreneur now. I'm going through a third iteration of it. And I'm so excited for you, Lance, to see where things are going to go as you continue down this path yourself. As we wrap up, what would be the one thing that you would recommend someone watching or listening do next as they continue to elevate and level up their own identity as an entrepreneur?
You know, I'd probably start with where it started for me, and that was investing in myself. My whole life, I never read those self-help books. I never joined masterminds. I never reached out to do anything like that until a
Why?
couple.
I want to pause and ask you why, because I think it's because there might be others there who are like, yeah, I don't do that either. But you
It's
do, you did it, and now you do. It's
right.
made a difference. Why?
Yeah,
Why
for
have
me,
you not?
it's been a huge game changer, and I'm sure people can imagine why. Why I never did it, I think for one, um, I probably just kind of like just pushed some of it off of just being like, oh, that, it's not going to make a difference. You don't know what you don't know, right? But I've had a few people in life, they're like, "Oh, you gotta invest in yourself and all these things." I mean, it's true. You could look at health and be like, "Hey, you invest in your health, you're gonna have a better quality of life, you're gonna live longer, be able to do more things." That makes sense, right? Well, from the other side, your physical, your mental, your spiritual side, whatever you got on that side, if you're not invested in that and you're not growing yourself, you're gonna stagnate as a person. You're not gonna be open to new things. Um, and I think there were definitely some times where I was limited with time, like I have a huge stack of books. I mean, it's probably 100 books deep. I kid you not. Your book is in there, but I've got a huge stack of books that I want to read. The stack of books that I've read is much smaller. So and people are like, oh, you can make time, and you can. And once you start reading a couple of books and you knock them off, you feel so good reading those books, and then you kind of ramps up, right? But jumping on to like a mastermind like I did, or like I first started Ben Hardy's Rapid Transformation was the first one I did, right? And then I jumped into a mastermind. I jumped around to a few. But I think obviously like dollars was a hard one for me to wrap my mind around, because it's like it's not something that you can just quantify. What's my return on investment? Because you don't know. But I mean, once you get into this and you open up your mind, you're like, man, I can do so much more. I can affect so much more change. I mean, it's endless, right? Like we are all capable of so much. Just like our brains, we barely use our brains at all. You know, imagine if you used your whole brain. So it's like you go to these places to expand yourself, make yourself better, have these bigger impacts. I mean, you don't know what you're missing out on. And I don't know that there's any legitimate reason that a person shouldn't do it. Um, even from a dollar standpoint, like sure, there's some dollars like some of these masterminds are more than you make in a year. Okay, don't join the mastermind, but there's plenty of others, right? But I think time and money were what ultimately kept me from starting. Outside of, I probably had some identity from growing up that it was like, that stuff doesn't work, And I growing up, I loved music. That was part of my identity, like you. And I got to go on tour a little bit. I got to sing and do some the fun things. But I had a parental figure that said, "Oh, don't pursue music. You won't make any money at it." Well, that identity stuck. I never pursued it professionally. We could have had a band together. Who knows, right? But but I guarantee there was a little something out there that was in my identity that was like, I don't need that. That's not going to help me. That's not going to serve a purpose, until I realized I was wrong, and I gave it a shot, and I realized this is some of the best medicine I've ever had.
All of that, I want to just compress down to the wisdom of Jim Rohn, who said, "Work harder on yourself than you work on your business."
Yeah.
That is something that I came into my field of vision back in 2014 as I was coming out of a dark night of the soul moment. And really was when I began to invest in myself 12 years into my entrepreneurial journey. And I was like, why did I not do this sooner? Because if I think about all of the transformations that I've had as an entrepreneur, as a husband, as a father, my health, my relationships, the relationship with myself for that matter. Because I was like you, I was like, I don't have time. But it was really when I started to do some marathon training that I would put Jim Rohn on and just go run, 10, 12, 15 miles. And I just started to see things shifted. And so to your point, even if you don't have the financial means at this point, there is YouTube, there are books, there's Audible, there are the ways that you can make the investment, and the biggest investment to make is the investment of time, but it's probably the one that's going to have the greatest payback over the period of time being your lifetime. So I appreciate your perspective, Lance. If someone's watching and listening, they want to connect with you, continue the conversation that we've started, what's the best way for them to reach out and say hello?
Yeah, I would say Instagram would be fine. I'm on there, Lance Cox at Instagram, whatever that is.
Connect with Lance on Instagram, learn with Lance, level up and grow with Lance. I appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you, JR. Appreciate you having me on.
Hey, it's JR. Before we wrap up, I have one more question for you. Are you a visionary entrepreneur who wants to elevate your brand and expand your influence to increase your impact? If this is you, you're the reason we're on a mission to amplify the voices of visionary entrepreneurs by unlocking their wisdom, sharing their stories, and publishing their books. So, when you are ready to level up your business and your life, send me a text to 832-240-1922. That's because I want to teach you to amplify your voice so that your mission and message are seen, known, and heard by those who need your help the most.